The humidity of the Miami evening clung to me as I stepped from the car. 3 days in Dallas, and I was ready for my own bed. I keyed in the code, and the door swung open onto a house that was not my home. It was a museum. The air was still, scrubbed clean of the comfortable chaos of our lives. The first thing that hit me was the scent, lemon chicken. A complex, all-day recipe Isabella only ever made for one person, my mother. Javier, you're home early. Isabella emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on an apron. The motion was practiced, a piece of stage blocking. Flight was smooth, I said, dropping my carry-on. The sofa cushions behind her were arranged with geometric precision. You didn't have to do all this. The house is surgical. I just wanted everything to be perfect for your return, she replied. She kissed my cheek. It was a quick, dry press, a transaction. I moved toward my home office to drop my briefcase. And I froze. The hardwood floor was immaculate, polished to a high sheen, except for a single, tiny, sharp indentation right by the office door jamb. A stiletto heel mark. It was deep, precise, and absolutely fresh. Isabella hadn't worn heels like that in 5 years. She lived in sandals and expensive sneakers. Something wrong, Amor? Her voice was a little too bright from the kitchen. I stared at the mark. No, just tired. I pushed my office door open. My sanctuary. Everything looked normal. No. My desk chair. It was 2 inches closer to the wall than I always left it. I am a man who builds unhackable software. I live by details. This was a deviation. Perfection is a cover-up. It's the absence of life, not the celebration of it. At dinner, she was the perfect wife. She asked about the investors. She listened intently, nodding in the right places. There were no jokes about my travel schedule, no passive-aggressive sighs. It felt like I was dining with a stranger who had studied a manual on how to be Isabella. This chicken is a lot of work, I said, probing. What's the occasion? Can't I just spoil my husband? This isn't spoiling, ISA. This is a state dinner. She looked down. I just had a lot of time on my hands. The next morning, I was up before dawn, a habit from years of coding. I stepped outside to grab the newspaper, the air thick with salt from the bay. SRA. Rivera, my neighbor across the street, was already watering her prize-winning orchids. She was the eyes and ears of the block. Javi, welcome back, she called, her voice cutting through the pre-dawn quiet. Morning, SRA Rivera. Good to be back. She lowered her watering can, a glint in her eye. My goodness, you had some very important company while you were gone. I saw the limousine. A stillness settled over me. I kept my voice level. A limousine? Oh yes. 2 nights in a row. Monday and Tuesday. A long, black, very expensive car. Parked right in your driveway until well after 2 a.m. I told my husband. Isabella must be entertaining politicians. She chuckled. I forced a smile. Oh, you know, old college friends of hers. They like to make an entrance. Friends in a limo. SRA Rivera mused, impressed. She must keep better company than I do. I walked back inside, the newspaper gripped tight in my hand. The house was silent. Isabella was still asleep. I stood in the kitchen, the faint, lingering smell of lemon hanging in the sterile air. College friends. She hadn't mentioned any, and none of her friends traveled by limousine. I went back to the stiletto mark by my office. It wasn't a random guest. It was an intrusion. I thought about my chair, the surgical cleanliness, the state dinner chicken, 2 nights, a limousine, and a lie. Isabella had told me she spent the week alone, watching streaming shows. I didn't storm upstairs. I didn't demand answers. I opened my laptop on the cold granite countertop. I didn't need a confrontation. I needed data. I pulled up the contact for a man I'd used once before for corporate due diligence, a man who specialized in finding facts people wanted to keep buried. I typed a simple, encrypted message. Marcos, I have a domestic situation requiring immediate discretion. What is your availability? The reply came in less than 60 seconds. On standby. Send location and objective. I typed, my home. Isabella was in the kitchen by 9, a perfect picture of domesticity. Morning, Amor. I was going to make arepas. No time, I said, closing my laptop. My voice was clipped, all business. That was the client. The Dallas servers are offline. The entire framework is unstable. I have to go back. Now. I watched her face for the reaction. A flicker of surprise? Annoyance? Relief? Nothing. Just placid acceptance. Oh no. That's terrible. Do you know when you'll be back? They're booking the flight. I'll be gone by noon. Don't know the return. Maybe Friday, maybe the weekend. Depends on the damage. Okay, Javi. Be safe, she said, turning back to the espresso machine. The performance was already over. I didn't go to the airport. I drove my car to a long-term garage at MIA, left it, and took a secure ride-share to a condo hotel in the financial district. I checked in under a corporate alias I kept for security audits. The room was anonymous, all glass and gray furniture, overlooking the bay. It was perfect. I sent the house blueprints, alarm overrides, and blind spot maps to Marcos. I'm off-site for 72 hours. The house is yours. I need to know who was in that limousine. Marcos's reply was instant. The vehicle is secondary. The person is the objective. You want surveillance on the primary subject, your wife. Affirmative, I typed. Full spectrum. I want to know where she goes, who she meets, what she's doing. You're paying for data, he responded. You'll get it. The first 24 hours were agonizing. I worked from the hotel, my focus fractured. I ran security diagnostics on my own company's code, my mind seeing vulnerabilities everywhere. There were no hits from Marcos. Isabella followed her normal routine. Yoga, lunch with a friend, the grocery store. It was almost disappointing. Then, Thursday night, my phone vibrated with a secure link. The first image was time-stamped 8:43 p.m. Isabella. She was walking into Nocturno, a private club in Brickell that required a 6-figure membership. She was wearing a black top, one I'd never seen, covered in fine, reflective material. She was alone, but moving with purpose. Subject is inside, Marcos's message read. I see that. I typed back, my knuckles white. Who is she meeting? Working on it. This place is tight. They scan for electronics at the door. My inside asset is limited. I paced the hotel room. The sterile silence was deafening. This was not a woman going to read a book. This was not a yoga class. An hour later, a new link. A grainy photo, taken from across the bar. Isabella was in a deep conversation, her head tilted, laughing at something. The man she was with was turned, his back partially to the camera. Don't know him, I sent, waiting for a clear shot. The clear shot came 20 minutes later. The man turned his head to signal a waiter. The light caught his profile. My stomach dropped. It was Alejandro Vargas. Vargas, the shark. The man who had tried to execute a hostile takeover of my company 8 months prior. The man who built his empire by asset stripping his competitors. He was my single greatest professional threat. This wasn't an affair. This was an alliance. I stared at the image. The stiletto mark wasn't by my office by accident. The chair moved at my desk. The 2-night visit from the limousine while I was gone. It all slotted into place. This wasn't about sex. This was about espionage. Marcos, I typed, my fingers stiff. New objective. This is not domestic. This is corporate. I need to know what they are discussing. I need to know what they are exchanging. A long pause. That's a different rate. Requires specialized assets. I don't care about the rate. Get it done. The final update came at 1:12 a.m. A short, silent video clip. Isabella and Vargas leaving the club. They weren't holding hands. There was no romance. It was cold, all business. He handed her a slim, aluminum-cased briefcase. She took it, nodded once, and walked to her car. He walked to his. They left separately. Marcos's text followed. They met for 3 hours. No physical contact. He gave her a hard case. This isn't a tryst, Mr. R. This is a transaction. I stood at the window, watching the lights of the city smear on the black water. She had let him into my house. She had let him into my office. The surgical cleaning. It wasn't to hide the scent of another man. It was to erase the fingerprints of a rival. They weren't just plotting to ruin my marriage. They were actively working to dismantle my life's work. My anger, which had been a low, cold burn, now clarified. It became sharp, precise. It became a plan. Marcos, I wrote, my decision made. I'm returning from Dallas tomorrow night. Before I arrive, I need your team inside the house. I need full audio and video surveillance in my office. Legalities are my concern. I'm going to set a trap. His reply was simple. When and where? I walked into the house on Friday evening, performing exhaustion. I didn't need to fake much. The lack of sleep was real. Javi, you're back again, Isabella said, rising from the sofa. She had the requisite look of wifely concern. Was the trip successful? It was a bloodbath, I said, letting my briefcase hit the floor with a thud. Total system failure. I've been coding for 48 hours straight. I'm running on fumes. I'll get you a drink. No, not yet, I said, rubbing my temples. I have to. I have to secure one thing. The only good thing to come out of this mess. In fact, it's the only thing that matters now. I walked past her, straight to the office. I could feel her presence behind me. I sat at my desk. I knew the cameras were watching. The microphones were live. I was now performing for Marcos as much as for her. "What is it?" she asked, standing in the doorway. She was an anchor, waiting to see which way the ship would tilt. I pulled a small, matte black hard drive from my briefcase. It was a custom build, one I'd spent 2 days coding. Project Aegis, I said, the name sounding important on my tongue. The Dallas servers. It wasn't a glitch. It was an attack. Someone's trying to short our stock. This is the antidote. I held it up. It's a new quantum encryption algorithm. I was developing it as a side project. This week, I finished it. This is our new core product. It's worth, I don't even know, $1 billion? 10. I'm pitching it to the DoD on Monday. I saw her eyes lock onto the drive. "Javi, that's incredible," she said. Her voice was breathy. "You should put that in the safe." "I will," I said, my acting flawless. I plugged the drive into my personal laptop, not the secure workstation. I have to run the final validation sequence. It has to be done from an unsecured network to mimic an external breach test. It's complicated. I typed, my back to her, my screen reflecting in the dark window. I was initiating a simple, 30-minute diagnostic script. "Ugh," I grunted. "I can't even see straight. My head is splitting." "Why don't you take a hot shower?" she suggested, her voice smooth. "I'll make you that drink." Yeah, good idea." I stood up, deliberately unsteady. I left the laptop open. I left the Aegis drive plugged in. The validation bar was creeping across the screen. "It'll be done in 20 minutes. I'll be out of the shower by then. It should be fine right here." I gestured to the desk, the most valuable object I owned, completely exposed. "It will be fine," she said. "Go. Relax." I walked past her. I didn't look back. Upstairs, I went into the master bathroom and turned the shower on full blast. The room filled with steam. I locked the door. Then I sat on the closed lid of the toilet, the sound of pounding water covering all noise. I pulled out my phone and opened the secure app for Marcos. Live. Office_cam_01. The desk was empty. I watched. The sound of the shower was a roaring in my ears. 1 minute. 2. Movement. Isabella glided into the office. She stood at the door, listening. She looked back toward the hall. Then she moved. She didn't touch my laptop. She pulled a small, identical-looking blank USB drive from her pocket. She slotted it into the port next to Aegis. My feed from Marcos included a screen capture of my laptop. I watched as her drive appeared. I watched her drag the folder labeled Aegis_prototype onto her device. The progress bar filled. 8 gigabytes of data. My data. The transfer completed. She ejected her drive, pocketed it, and left the room. The entire event took less than 40 seconds. She was a professional. I sat in the steam for another 10 minutes. My heart, which should have been pounding with rage, was utterly still. Cold. I turned off the shower, wrapped a towel around my waist, and went downstairs. She was on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. She looked up, the perfect picture of patience. "Feel better?" "Much," I said. I walked into the office. The validation was complete. I ejected the Aegis drive, walked to my wall safe, spun the dial, and locked the drive inside. A perfect show of security, 30 minutes too late. I got my drink, sat next to her, and put my feet up. "So, tell me what you did while I was gone. Anything exciting?" At 2:17 a.m., I lay awake in the dark. Isabella was asleep beside me, breathing deeply. My phone vibrated once, a silent notification under the pillow. It was from Marcos. Package delivered. Subject uploaded the file from a burner address to a private server 12 minutes after you went to bed. Server traces back to a shell corporation owned by Vargas. I stared at the ceiling. She hadn't even waited. Payload is armed. The message continued. The algorithm was a key. They just used it to unlock their own front door. The moment they execute Aegis in their R&D environment, it activates. We'll have full root access to their entire infrastructure. I typed back a single word. Good. She had stolen the bait. She and Vargas thought they were holding the prototype for $1 billion encryption code. They were wrong. They were holding a self-destruct sequence, and they were about to press the button themselves. The weekend was an exercise in controlled patience. I was a man playing 2 roles, the stressed executive repairing a catastrophic failure, and the predator waiting for his quarry to step on the pressure plate. I spent Saturday and Sunday locked in my office, supposedly salvaging the Dallas code. In reality, I was monitoring a private terminal, a direct, encrypted link to my core tech team. led by Ben, my best systems architect. Isabella played her part perfectly, bringing me coffee, her brow furrowed with concern. Are you getting any sleep, Javi? You look pale. It's just code. I'll get it, I'd reply, never turning from the screens. Her performance of solicitude was flawless, and it fueled the ice in my veins. She believed she was nursing a wounded man. She was actually living with a loaded weapon. Monday morning. The financial markets opened at 9:30 a.m. I was at my desk, the terminal open. Isabella had already left for a spa day. A celebration, no doubt. At 9:47 a.m., my screen flashed. A single line from Ben. Plus, payload active. R&D server. We are root. They had run it. Vargas's team, arrogant and eager, had executed Aegis. Yexi in their development environment. The Trojan activated, punched through their firewalls, and opened a secure, invisible backdoor. Ben's team flooded in. What do you see? I typed. The data began to stream. It's worse than you thought, Javier, Ben wrote. They weren't just going to steal Aegis. They were going to patent it. They have fabricated R&D timelines to predate yours. Get it all, I ordered. Way ahead of you. And I'm in his private financials. He's running a massive fraud. 2 sets of books. Shell companies in the Caymans. He's been cooking the books for years. This was no longer just about my company. This was about a criminal enterprise. There's a folder, Ben typed a minute later. Label, Project Eclipse. It's her. All her uploads. Communications. A signed agreement. My screen filled with the proof. It wasn't just my code. It was my private calendars, my investor contact lists, my travel itineraries. She had been feeding him intel for over a year. The agreement specified her payment, a 15% stake in Vargas's company after the successful acquisition of mine. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had sold me. Ben, I typed, my hand steady. Package everything. The fraud, the conspiracy, the Eclipse folder. Send it to my secure legal drop. Then, I want you to initiate phase 2. Lockout. Total. Seize the infrastructure. Change every admin password, every root key. Burn their access to the ground. I want Vargas to be a guest on his own network. Affirmative. Activating. While Ben's team dismantled Vargas's digital kingdom from the inside, I made my second call. David, I said to my attorney, are you at your desk? Good. Check your secure drop. We are no longer filing for divorce. We are filing a RICO injunction for criminal conspiracy, wire fraud, and corporate espionage. I want every asset tied to Alejandro Vargas and Isabella Rivera frozen by noon. A long silence on the other end. Javier, this isn't a legal file. This is a declaration of war. It's a counteroffensive, David. They're armed with stolen data. We're armed with the truth. File it. I want the SEC, the FBI, and the press to get the fraud package anonymously at 11 a.m. I'm on my way to the office to coordinate. I shut down my terminal. The house was quiet. I grabbed my briefcase, a real one this time. As I walked into the foyer, Isabella's car pulled into the driveway. She was back from her morning of pampering, humming. She stepped inside, holding her yoga mat. Hi, love. How's the... She stopped. I was standing by the door, briefcase in hand. Javi, I thought you were working from home. Is everything? Yes, I said. My voice was calm, clear. The voice of a man who had finished a problem. Everything is finally being handled. I'm going to the office. Oh, okay. Well, will you be late? I was thinking. I will be, I said, cutting her off. You should probably stay near your phone. I imagine it's going to be a very busy day for you. I opened the front door and walked out. As I started my car, I saw her through the window, confused. Her phone rang in her hand. I saw her look at the screen, her expression twisting from confusion to panic. It was Vargas. The cascade had begun. When I arrived at my corporate headquarters, the 10th floor was not a place of business. It was a command center. My core tech team, led by Ben, was consolidated in the main conference room. David, my attorney, was already there, pacing with a phone pressed to his ear. The energy in the room was not panic. It was the focused, high-adrenaline hum of a successful operation. David, I asked, setting my briefcase on the glass table. He covered the receiver. It's done. The injunction was granted at 10:30 a.m. The judge read the Project Eclipse file and didn't hesitate. All of Vargas's corporate and personal accounts are frozen. The SEC was notified by my office at 10:35, citing the evidence of systemic fraud we uncovered. Network status, I said, turning to Ben. Total lockout, Ben replied, his eyes fixed on 3 monitors. We control their infrastructure. They can't send an email, access a file, or even use their own desk phones. We cut them off at the root. The Aegis Trojan. It was beautiful, Javier. It gave us everything. We're currently downloading the final encrypted backup of his criminal financials. My phone began to vibrate, a frantic, incessant buzzing. Isabella. I let it ring. Vargas? I asked. As of 10:45, David said, federal agents were en route to his office to seize servers. He's trapped. He can't move his money. He can't destroy the evidence. He can't even flee the country, as his name is now on a federal watch list. The phone vibrated again. A text message from Isabella. They shut down my cards. Javier, I'm stranded. Answer me. What is happening? I silenced the device and placed it face down. I spent the rest of the day in a series of calculated maneuvers, coordinating with federal investigators, briefing my board, and authorizing David to file the civil suits that would follow the criminal charges. We weren't just defending, we were acquiring. When I finally returned to the house, it was well past midnight. The lights were on. Isabella was in the living room, surrounded by suitcases. The perfection was gone, replaced by a storm of panicked packing. She saw me and sprang up. Finally, you have to fix this. My accounts, my car, nothing works. They're saying my name is tied to Alejandro's investigation. You have to tell them it's a mistake. I stood in the foyer. I didn't move. It's not a mistake. Her face crumpled, the realization hitting her. You did this? This is about that stupid club? This is not about a club, I said, my voice cutting through her panic. This is about a signed agreement. Project Eclipse. 15%. Your payment for dismantling my company. The blood drained from her face. You weren't having an affair, Isabella. You were committing a felony. You weren't a cheating wife. You were a corporate spy. Javier, please. He promised. He promised you 15% of a company he stole. You both miscalculated. You thought I was a husband. I am a systems architect. You introduced a threat. I isolated it. I trapped it, and now I am eradicating it. My life is ruined, she screamed. You made a professional decision. I countered, my voice devoid of emotion. You entered into a business contract. These are the consequences. The police will be here in the morning with questions for you. My attorney has already filed for divorce on grounds of criminal conspiracy. The house is a corporate asset. You are a security risk. You have 1 hour to vacate the premises before I call security. I turned and walked to my office. I closed the door, the sound of her belated, useless rage on the other side. 6 months later, I stood in a new office, overlooking the Miami skyline. The shell of Vargas's company had been auctioned off for parts. My firm had acquired its best assets for pennies on the dollar. Vargas was awaiting a federal trial he could not win. Isabella, in exchange for testimony against him, had received a reduced sentence. I hadn't seen her since that night. Then, now my chief of operations, walked in. The real Aegis prototype is ready for review, he said. The encryption is unshakable. I looked at the city lights. Good. But the code was never the weakness, was it? No, boss, Ben said. It's always the human element. Exactly, I replied. This time, we build differently. We build on loyalty. We build on proof. I had learned the hard way that perfection is a cover-up, but clarity is a weapon. And I was finally living in a world of clear lines.